Hey everybody, it's Heather Michelle from Heather the Painter, and I'm really excited that it's Paint Jam 3, and I can't believe how quickly it's gone by. So I have opened up a painting I did outside of the Paint Jam, and I'd be happy to share the stages. I'm sure Corel can get that set up. So here is the stage I'm at. And if you have worked in Photoshop files and you didn't save it as a RIF, the quickest way to set up your clone source with it is going to your clone source palette, this guy here. And if we go to the bottom left icon, it says Open Source Image. So it's going to ask me to locate where our original file was, and I believe it's this one here. So now if I turn my tracing paper on by hitting Command or Control T, I can see the original. So my clone source is set up correctly. Let me go ahead and do a File Save As. And I've kept the original name just so it lets me know what my reference file is. And right now I'm in stage 15. If I save it as a painter RIF, the beauty about the RIFs is it automatically remembers and links up to your source file. However, if you want to open it in, say, Photoshop later on, you can also save it as a Photoshop file. I would just recommend making sure that it's uncompressed. So I'm going to hit Save. And I've taken a bunch of round brushes, flat brushes, custom brushes, but I want to stay within some of the brushes that Painter offers. So some of my favorite ones are found in the oils section. And I'm going to go find a smeary flat, so oils smeary flat, and I'm going to work on the faces. So right now, it's kind of a mess because I overlaid some color for my background, making sure that I got my background space fairly finished before moving on to the subjects. And the smeary flat and the smeary round are excellent skin and hair and subject brushes. So I'm going to make this a cloner by clicking on my clone stamp icon. On my color wheel, you'll see that it grays out, which means I'm in clone mode or I'm painting with an image. Make a mark. I'm going to make a couple little setting adjustments. Oops, let me try a 5. There we go. Much better. Alright, so what I've done is taken my oil smeary flat, my opacity is about 50, my resat's 15, my bleed is 100, and my feature, which determines how scratchy or bristly a brush is a little under 5. So I'm going to make smaller marks on her face so we can kind of keep the idea and structure of the planes of her face. I don't want to make really long fluid brush strokes because in her face it's just small shapes coming together. If I were to make long brush strokes, this is what happens. So I'm going to lightly brush in, toggling back and forth between my clone source often just so I can make sure that I'm following the shape of her jaw and I'm not altering anything. I don't want to change the structure of her face. Here we go.
Heather, I just wanted to mention that you were kind enough to offer a couple brushes to us.
Sure.
And I'll be sure to get those posted on the Paint Jam page so that everybody here can download them and try them out.
Wonderful. Yep. I think I sent in 2 flat brushes, which is one of the ones I'm using now with some adjustments. So you'll enjoy it in skin and hair and fabric. It's just kind of a good go-to brush.
Thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. So I'm in clone mode. I'm going to switch over to color mode because right now I'm kind of blending out her face too much. So I'm going to switch into color mode by either clicking on my clone stamp icon or hitting U on my keyboard. And I'm going to make that background space a little bit more solid against her forehead, just so it doesn't look so cut and paste. And making sure I have her lips and her chin intact. Here we go. And just watching the value, meaning light to dark, on her face. And if I ever mess up, I can just switch back to clone mode and brush in with that image. And I'll pass it over to Claudia.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Very happy to be here again, and very amazed to be able to share with you this space. And thank you for those of you have sent your images. Is really something to see that we all are working on the same project, and and we have all these incredible results. I wanted to start from from the end. So I've been working on the image, and I got to this point in which I think I'm happy. I like the colors. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna show you the latest step in which I am right now, and I'm gonna go back and tell you how I got here. So if you see my image, let me just do something here because I cannot see my layers. If you see this image right now, you can notice that I have all this amount of layers. I have 4 layers. One layer is the one for my dancers. This layer here, the canvas, is the one that you saw at the beginning, where I was playing with the distortion tool, just moving colors around, and it was also transformed using the toner control command and adjust colors to get different tones and hue for this canvas, for this layer. Then I have my dancers, in which I've worked a lot, and I will go back and show you how I got here. And then I got these 2 layers that are something that I decided to add at the end, which is La Pirámide del Sol in Mexico. I don't know if you've seen that. So it's a very special, sacred place in Mexico that I had the opportunity to visit years ago. So I just brought one image from that trip, and I decided to put it as a background. So these dances are not dancing in Ottawa, but in Mexico. And these images, these layers here are, both of them are gels. So we're going to go back and we're going to see how I created these 2 layers and how I got to this spot. So I'm going to go back to where I was before. Last time we saw each other, and it's this step. And what I did actually was keep working with the distorter tool. I decided to create an image just with this tool, just to show you how versatile it is and how much you can achieve by working with it. So what I did was to go over many details of the image and play with these lines. There are many ways to work with the distorter tool, and I encourage you to play a lot. I've played a lot, like a lot, to learn how it works, because it's a very sensitive tool to pressure. So depending on the pressure, you get a completely different effect. For example, at this point, I'm going to be not cloning, but applying color. And I have my brush in 42.1 size, 20% of opacity, 61 grain, and 0 jitter. I'm not taking care of the jitter at all. But I'm going to show you just by using pressure or not how it changes. So at this point, I'm really applying pressure to my brush, right? So I'm going to do it again, and this is exactly the same tool, the same characteristics. I haven't changed anything, but I'm not applying any pressure. So you see that what you can achieve is completely different. So if you want just to play with the image, you can just do it like that, and you are playing around with the pixels, not adding color, which would be kind of the same of lowering the opacity to 0. So I can do this, and I can really press hard, and I'm doing the same thing. So this interesting combination of having certain kind of opacity but having grain and being able to work with the pressure is just unbelievable, because that allows you to create lots of different kind of effects and add color at the same time. So by doing this, I decided to go carefully over the lines of the dresses, because if I was just playing around with a big brush, so all these lines were going to be lost, right? I didn't want that to happen. I really like the lines and the rhythm and all the movement of the dresses. So I decided to use a very small brush and go over and over the lines of the dress, sometimes applying color, sometimes just playing with the lines and moving them a little bit. So what I really wanted to do was to increase the movement and the flow of the dress. So at this point, I can do different kind of things. Okay, I'll leave it for later. I think now it's Jeremy's turn.
All right, thanks, Claudia.
My pleasure.
Hi everybody, it's Jeremy here, and I'm sort of continuing where I left off last time. So if you may recall, I was using the Modern Art in a can and just following with some clone color and some of my own color, following the lines of motion in the painting. So I've just changed the brush here. I'm using right now a Jeremy Pollock pastel. So I'm just going to play with a few different brushes. I have a little sketcher here, and you'll see me just typing in to the brush search, which I love. I'm so thrilled with this addition in Painter X3. I absolutely love it. So it saves so much time. Now this brush, you'll see that I'm sort of doing rather faster strokes, and so a lot of the work that you see me doing here, it's all about movement in the picture. And let me just, I've got programmed into the front button of my stylus an iterative save. So every now and then I'm just going to press that. And I'm still really not worrying too much about detail. I know I may have like 5 or so more minutes, so I will go in sort of later into just some finer detail. But right now, this is much more about energy and gradually building things up. I'm going to do, let's just do one more thing. I'm going to change the clone source to this image by Rosa Calderon that I'd mentioned of Mexican folkloric dancer's skirt, and I'm going to change the brush to crumbly wood. And so again, one of the great things about this search field is you can just start looking for brushes by keyword. And so what you'll see here is I'm taking color from that new clone source, and this is one of the things I love about the clone source workflow, both in Painter 12, now in Painter X3, is the ability just to work with multiple clone sources and just go back and forwards between them very, very quickly and easily. So I'm just going to build up a little bit of background there. And as I'm doing that, I'm just looking at the way the eye moves around the image. Let's go for a different brush here, and I'm going to go for one that was inspired by Klimt. And let's
Jeremy,
yep.
While you're pulling the image up, do you want to remind everybody, there's quite a few questions asking where people can get your brushes, and I know where they are. I thought you could remind everybody.
Yeah, no, these are all part parcel of my new workspace that I've been working on. That's part of Paintbox TV membership. So if you just join paintboxtv.com either for a month or a year, then there's this big workspace that includes lots of extra art materials, and so these different categories of brushes, they're all part of that. And I just sort of I've really been trying to find brushes that sort of have that more organic feel. One of the things again that I love about Painter X3 is with the new jitter, I can really play with that, and let's have a look here. Just got a glimpse.
There's an interesting question that came in from Kelly. She's noticing that almost every artist in the webinars uses a Mac as opposed to a PC, and she's wondering, is the Apple computer really better than a PC?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for myself. Macs were the first computers I used. I've been painting on a Mac now for sort of 22 years or so. So I love Macs. I do use PC, especially since I teach, and I have to test things and teach things on Windows. So I have a Windows 7 and a Windows 8 machine, and actually Windows 8 is not bad. I sort of was really pleasantly surprised by that. But when it comes down to it, I do, personally I prefer the Mac, and I find it more intuitive and more comfortable. We'd have to hear what Heather and Claudia think, but that's my feeling about it. I'm going to show another brush here that I created inspired by Dali. This is Deep Well Dali, and it's a sort of distortion brush. So let's see how it goes. I'll zoom in a bit so you can see the sort of structure. So I love to develop structure on my canvas, and this one, the size is pressure sensitive, so as I go around the folds of the dress I can sort of have different effects. Great, and I'll pass this on to Heather, so thanks so much.
Looking good, Jeremy.
I'm just having fun.
Comments that they love your vibrant colors. And George had an interesting comment while we're passing over to Heather here. He's saying that he's very interested in seeing the shoes defined because a dancer's shoes are like an artist's brush.
And that is so true. As a dancer, I can absolutely vouch for that myself, because shoes and floor surfaces, the two things.
Very cool. Well, I love the colors that Jeremy and Claudia, you guys are using. It's just so vibrant, and there's so much life, and it feels like your painting's actually dancing because there's just a lot of movement and lots of grace. Well, I guess I'll cover the shoes, maybe. I have taken a flat brush, my oil smeary flat, and cloned in roughly, and I know I'm not doing them justice because what I love is like the line of the bottom of the foot on shoes, and so I want to define that a little bit more. And I'll take my flat clone brush, which is my oil smeary flat, and I'm just lightly putting in a little bit of pressure with a small brush in the area of her shoe to build that up. So we get a little bit more definition. I don't want to make it too long or too short. I'll do the same over here. So I'm just cloning. I'm painting in with an image. I'm not painting with color just yet. Here we go. Now I want to build up an extra texture on shoes. I just love texture play in paintings. So I'm going to go over to my chalk and find that square chalk and make a few adjustments. I'm going to drop my reset to about 20. My grain I'm going to leave, I think it comes at 10 or 12, and my opacity's at about 30. I have not touched my bleed or my stroke jitter. And the important thing here to pull up your paper texture is you need to tell Painter what kind of paper texture to use. So I'm going to my absolute favorite, which is Artist Canvas. And we'll see that that gives us this really pretty canvas texture. So I'm going to use that to continue to build up her shoes. I'm going to take some of these really cool, you see like almost a neutral lavender. Smaller brush. And build up the edge. Take some of those dark tones we see in the shadows. And I apologize if it gets noisy. My neighbor right behind us just decided to start mowing his lawn, so it might get a little noisy here.
We can't hear anything right now.
Oh, good. Here we
Just
go.
to
I'm
let
going
you
to add.
all know, everyone is appreciating how different all your styles are. And it's
Oh,
so much
good.
fun to see
It's
that.
amazing, actually.
I know I've been thoroughly inspired by watching Claudia and Jeremy paint. It's just, I think as artists, we can never get enough of watching other artists create because it's just inspiring and we get new ideas and we learn new little gold nuggets and it's just awesome. So I think Corel did a fabulous job putting this together. Putting some highlights in. Now you'll notice I'm not putting highlights in shadow areas. I want to keep the value, again meaning dark to light, in the correct place. So for instance, we're not going to put a bright highlight in the shadow of her shoe or that's just going to change the perception of where the light's falling. So I hope that kind of helps answer a little bit, at least in that style, and how to build up shoes. You kind of treat them like faces where there's lots of little details and smaller brush strokes. So I'm going to do a quick save. So we can see the original, and then here I'm going to make the back part of her heel a little bit wider and make sure that shape is correct on the bottom of her foot. So that clone source, or that tracing paper, really comes in handy here.
It's
I'm gonna play with some
amazing
colors.
when you back off. Those shoes really pop.
Yes.
That looks so great. A few strategically placed highlights and it brings them alive.
Absolutely. As long as you're keeping your values in the correct place, you can put whatever color down you'd like. So, for example, back here we have a dark value, and your value scale being on the left side here, we can move it all the way around the color wheel and be in the correct value and put down any color, and it's okay. Same in your midtone, we can change the color around the wheel, and it works. So it's making sure those values are correct. Here we go. And I'm so glad Jeremy showed the brush search tool, which I don't think mine's up right now, but I've enjoyed that thoroughly with the new X3. It's helped quite a bit. On to you, Claudia.
Okay.
All right.
Wait a second. Are you looking? Okay.
There you go.
Here I am. Okay, so talking about shoes, this is where I got with mine. It is completely different, but I wanted to share with you because it's almost the same process and the same idea, but just done with a different tool. It is, again, just using the distorted tool. So I'm going to go back to this image where I have the original shoes, and I'm going to try to reproduce exactly that, just working with the distorted tool. So at this point, what I would do is work with a smaller brush and try to, as Heather was saying, keeping in mind the value of the color in every single place, but playing with lights and shades and shadows. So what I would do, and you can notice if you and Mac use Alt and you click here in this color, for example, you can get the same color, or you can just go to the dropper and do the same. And you can just apply the same color. What's this? All around. Okay, I need to use this freehand strokes. This happened because I clicked accidentally here in straight line strokes. You don't need that. Especially for what I want to do, I want to use the freehand strokes where I can really work freely. So I don't like this line. So I'm going to keep working on my shoes. I'm going to go a little bit farther so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going again to my brush. I want it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to just move the colors that I have around and do a little bit of expression to the shoes. And then I'm going to add later on more lights and textures. So if I do something like this, and then I click on white and apply white here, I'm not applying white. Why? Because this the opacity is in 0. So I'm gonna change the opacity to 25. And remember that if this is sensitive to pressure. So if I do like this, I'm just getting a little bit of the white. If I press harder, I get a lot of white. So this is very useful for when you want to add some lights to your subject. So this will give me a little bit more of expression to my shoes. So I'm going to use a smaller brush here for this part of the shoe, and I can just paint a little bit on top.
I have a question for all of you. There's interest in knowing if you ever find the need to switch back to any previous version of Painter, or is your entire workflow now in Corel Painter X3?
I never have to really go back to previous versions of Painter. I'm pretty comfortable, and it's pretty clear, and you can really do whatever you want. I don't need to go back to other versions, which doesn't mean that you cannot do a lot with the latest, with the previous versions. They are as powerful. But no, I don't have to go back. Do you have to go back, guys? Jeremy or Heather?
Well, I love X3, and I basically stick with it. I can do everything I want there, and also I've developed now a whole bunch of brushes that some of which are using these new jitter sliders. So in fact, I don't really, there's no reason for me to go back to any other older version. And so the basic answer is X3, has everything that the older versions had, but so much more. So for me, it's sort of no-brainer. I just love working in X3, and I stick with it.
Well, I do love X3. My background is in retouching artist, so I love doing the composite and collage work, and then like retouching skin and stray hairs, and any of the nip tucks that I have to do. I prefer doing it in Photoshop just because that's what I was raised in, and I know you can do that in Painter, but I guess that's my comfort zone, is retouching and prepping the image in Photoshop first.
Just a little note about what I'm doing right now here, that maybe you're asking what's that. I'm just trying to use the same color to paint. So I can use this gray, but I can go back to the white and add some light if I want. So that's what I'm going to do with the dresses. And the way I'm going to do this, as I told you, I want to keep the lines, but I want them to be more, to give them more movement. So using a little bit a bigger brush. If I do this, what is happening is that I'm adding white, so I don't want that. What I'm going to do is, using the same colors that I have on my image and using the dropper, I'm going to keep adding green here, for example, in this line. But I'm going to be making this piece of fabric like a little bit more smooth. I need a lot of good folds to this. But I'm going to show you in my image at the end how it worked. So what I did actually was to, with the same kind of color, continue these lines and give them more movement. Just as the beginning. Then at the end, I'm going to be adding colors and adding whites to have more and more light. Jeremy, or yours?
There's a lot of love for your use of this Distorto brush. And I absolutely love your final painting. It looks amazing.
Thank you, Tanya.
So while we're switching, I have a question. I noticed that as I've observed different people, different artists painting, where you sit, what your workstation looks like is different. So I guess the question for our three artists today would be, what do you find most comfortable? Do you like to stand? Do you like to sit? Or do you occasionally stand and sit just to kind of relax? Arm positions, just sort of the general ergonomics that you find work well for your workflow.
Well, I personally like having the tablet on my lap, on my lap, if it's a small tablet. If it's big, I prefer having it in front of me on my desk, and I'm higher on my chair and straight, and but sitting down, like crossing my legs, so I'm comfortable. But I never paint like standing up.
Yeah. Hi. For doing live work where I'm doing a portrait from life, I love to have like a Cintiq on an easel and paint standing up. It's the most direct way for me. When I'm working on a project, photo-based, I like having a tablet on the table and a nice big 30-inch monitor in front of me, and that's definitely the most comfortable. Heather, did you have something to add?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, when I'm working on, like with actual paints, I prefer standing with my easel, but I found when I'm working long hours digitally painting, like Jeremy, I love my 30-inch monitor, and ergonomics are really important, just so I don't get any of the headaches or any kind of muscle strain. Mm-hmm. So I found if you can keep your shoulders pretty level and your head rested with your eyes straight in front of you instead of looking down or looking up, you can actually work a lot longer without getting tension or tightness, and it's easier sitting when you're painting at long periods.
Heather, we've got the robot going on with your mic again.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. Let me try to fix that.
So let me just explain a little bit about what's going on. So with this skirt, I'm using a Real Fan Short from the oils category with a 60 art pen. And for those of you who've got a 60 art pen, you'll know that some of the brushes give this incredible ability to, as you rotate your pen, you can get these incredible rotating brush strokes, which are perfect in this case for the dresses. The other thing I'm doing here, if you notice on the top right, is I'm going into the mixer. I've got that Doofy up there as the mixer pad, and I'm using the Sample Multiple Colors sampler. With some of the brushes, this is absolutely amazing, because what it does is it allows you to have multiple colors across the width of the brush stroke. So I definitely encourage you to experiment with that. I'm going to change my brush now, and I'm going to go for a splodgy brush, and I think I have a nice splodgy oil here. So let's just go back and work a little bit here. This is in clone mode, so I'm just going to adjust the size a little bit, and I'm just going to make a few little dabs, start to define a little bit more of my subjects. And in response to the question about the shoes, let's go down there and just bring up a little bit of the shoes.
I have a question from John, and I can't recall if you all covered what kind of tablets you're using, but his question is, he's using an Intuos 3 9x12, and he's wondering if it's worth upgrading to one of the newer tablets.
Well, I can say the Intuos 5s are amazing, and so if you're going from an Intuos 3, definitely you'll notice a difference. So I would say that is well worth it.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Okay. So what I'm going to do here is just go in with a little bit of tracing paper. And I'm working just with a pencil here, thick thin pencil.
There's a question here that I'm actually not sure about. And they're wondering if it's possible to get the clone source image larger on the screen. I know that you can show, I mean, I guess that's why, showing the source image, you've got it small there just for the purposes of presentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
With the clone source, yes, you can do pretty much anything to the clone source in terms of both its scaling, as well as obviously you can actually apply effects to it and then save it as another clone source. So it's very, very versatile. But yes, you can indeed work with it at any scale, and sometimes that's useful when you're working on details. So I'm just sort of doing a little bit of representative detail, but I don't want to get it too precise. One of the things about the way that I work, as you probably noticed, is that I work in quite an abstract way for quite a long time. And here in San Francisco, we have an incredible show right now at the Young Museum, which actually my girlfriend Peggy July is the artist in residence right this moment. And Diebenkorn did a lot of working with the intersection of abstraction and representation. And I think this quote really summarizes so much what I find very empowering in an approach to painting where you don't, you look at it both as an abstract and as a representative work. So he explained that in his view, all paintings start out of a mood, out of a relationship with things or people, out of a complete visual impression. To call this expression abstract seems to me often to confuse the issue. Abstract means literally to draw or from or separate. In this sense, every artist is abstract. A realistic or non-objective approach makes no difference. The result is what counts. And I think that really summarizes what what you see in certainly in the way that I tend to approach things, allowing them to be very loose for a long time. And obviously, I'm not going to have time to completely develop this. But gradually it unfolds organically. So I hear the little music, which means I'm about to pass over my screen. So before I do, I have one other thing. This is a participative thing for everybody who's got a mic, and that is let's all sing happy birthday to Claudia. So 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Come on, Heather and Tanya. Happy birthday, dear Claudia. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday
Okay,
to
Claudia,
you.
you better blow the candles out, right?
Thank
many,
you,
many,
everybody.
many happy returns. And thank you,
Oh my
Claudia. And
What's the RGB value for her blush?
Everybody's singing. Thank you a lot, Jeremy.
many happy returns, and really thank you, Claudia and Heather, so much for being such wonderful jamming partners and so inspiring. Both of you are just amazing, and thank you, Corel, for putting this on. It's been an amazing experience to do this. So
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, guys.
And thank you all for being our first willing Paint Jam participants, or presenters, I should say, because this is an entirely new format for us, and it was so exciting to see you, go through this and do such a wonderful job presenting in this new format. Now, I'll ask you all, I think Heather's up for showing just a little bit more. If you wanted to, pass the ball around one more time just to do any final comments that you may have on your work. We definitely have time to do that.
absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Heather. There you go. You should have control.
Okay. The question comes up a lot of times. Is my audio okay, or do I still sound like a robot?
No, it sounds great.
Oh, good. Okay. What do you do after you finish your piece in Corel Painter? And you can print it out and hang it and be, have fun with that. But I love incorporating more of the traditional media on top. And so what I've started doing is actually painting it out in Painter, printing it. So this would be my original, this would be my digital painting, and then going back in and adding texture with golden gel products, and then matching colors in paint, and just freehand painting over top with professional grade acrylics. So when you put it under the light, you see all those beautiful textures that you would get in a traditional, like an oil painting. And it's been very well received, and it's a lot of fun, I think, just to be able to go back to the easel and tie up everything. So you can see all the little different bits of texture here, and you just, it gives it a totally different quality from having a flat canvas to something raised. So when the gels are in their wet stage, you can see right here that they're all white, and it looks like you're painting with glue, but they do dry clear, unless of course you're using a matte gel. So I mainly use golden products, and if you want to start out with two of them, I would say start out with your soft gel gloss and then either a heavy gel semi-gloss or a high solid gel, which only comes in gloss and matte, and try it in gloss for portrait art, because those do dry clear and then they just hold different textures. So I don't want to take up a whole lot of time, but I just want to show you what you can do with some of these paints, and how much of a mess you can make. But you can see here, this is the acrylic version painted over top of the digital painting. And you can see all the nice textures and the brush strokes, and you can throw in palette knives and scrubbers. You just get a really different texture to it. So when I have done these paintings, I've broken it down into the layers. So you would have whatever board or canvas that you're mounting on. Typically I use masonite or styrene or gator foam, something acid-free. The second layer would be the digital painting that I love using canvas. I like using Breathing Colors Live V and Chromata White, Epson. I think they have a velvet canvas that's also beautiful. And they're, oh goodness, I can't remember the top one. But anyway, Breathing Color makes some beautiful canvases. The third layer would be either some kind of spray fixative or isolation coat. And if you go to YouTube and Google golden isolation coat, it'll have a whole bunch of videos on how to mix it, how to apply it, how to let it dry. Then, layer 4 would be all the gels and acrylics, and the important part here is just allowing every layer to dry before continuing to build up. And you can use oils and pastels, and you can use any traditional media. You just need to make sure that you're giving it sufficient dry time. And then over top, of course, we would have some kind of protective coat, which again, if you Google the isolation coat, you'll see a bunch of videos on how to apply that and understand the science behind it. And then if you really want to take it all the way, at the very top you would have a removable varnish, which there's a wonderful MSA UVLS golden spray varnish, or you can also roll it on. I think Breathing Color also has one. But that just allows it, like say, 200 years down the road, Claudia's painting is hung in this museum and they need to strip the top varnish to clean it because there's dirt and fingerprints from 200 years of it, traveling the world. So their team can then strip that varnish coat, clean it, and then put a clean protective coat on top of it. So you've got a lot of options with just a few simple little gels that you can mix with water-based paints. I don't think you can use the gels with oils, mixing them together, since one is water-based and one is oil-based. But I'm curious, I know Jeremy, you do the same thing, and Claudia, I believe you do the same as well with applying paints and different textures.
Yeah, definitely. So But I can tell you a little bit when it's my turn to show you something.
Sure, okay. So this is one of my drying racks that I've always got my canvases on. I make a huge mess, and I tend to take over the house and all the flat surfaces. And I think I showed this in the first one, but this is my digital workspace setup. When it's actually clean, it's never that clean. And this is, yeah.
Do you print everything in your studio then? Christina was wondering where you print, or do you have a preferred printing provider?
Excellent question. I only print for myself. I'm learning large format printing, but I love JonathanPenny.com does beautiful canvases and papers, and as well as Mid-South Color Lab. But any of the major labs like Miller's and White House, and I think Breathing Color also prints, but they have beautiful canvases. But my absolute favorite would have to be Jonathan Penny. So you can go to jonathanpenny.com, and they have these gorgeous canvases and fine art papers, and they're just luscious and rich and a really nice complement to what you paint.
So that's Jonathan Penny. I'll go ahead and type it in the question window. Okay.
Yeah, it's PENNEY.com.
All right.
And they do beautiful, beautiful canvas work, as well as the fine art papers and the matte papers. So you can see you just add a little bit more depth from your original. to your acrylic. So that's just taking it an extra step if you want to play with post-production and, you know, get into the paints and just get your hands into organic media. And then there's Jack. He's the one that actually paints everything.
Well, that was terrific advice for the painting and the printing. A lot of people are saying thanks so much for offering us that information, and I know that Claudia has information to share with us also. So shall I go ahead and switch it over to you?
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to just show you how I finished this image. So I know you have a good idea of how I created all these lines here. Ones were created just pushing the original color, other ones were created like adding even the same color to raise the texture. And for example, in these corners here, I just darkened a little bit the color here in my color wheel, and then I painted again on top. And I just enlarged all the colors and all the swirls of the dresses. And of course, I worked also on the faces and the hair. And this is the result. It is. I just want you to try this tool because I didn't use any other tool other than Distortion to create the face and to add all these lights and shades to paint the earrings, and that's the way I did all this texture. For the background, I just brought a photograph from another library. I just made sure it was the same size, so I could put it here. And this is the final stage, but I brought the photograph. I used in the tonal control, color adjust, and brightness and contrast. I lowered the saturation. I increased the contrast. I make it more like a black and white image. But I use it as a gel. So if it's a default image is like that, but this composite method allows you to create more and more and more effects. So you can go to colorize, you can use magic combine, you can use gel, which is what I used, and I did this effect to the, gave this effect to the pyramid. And then I just, again, with the Distortion tool, I paint these lines on top. But it was too clear, too light for me. So what I did is I reproduced the canvas, I converted it into a layer, I erased all the part in the lower part that I didn't need it, because this is a gel. This is something that is going to be affecting all the colors of the layers that you have on your painting. So I didn't want this layer to affect all this lower part of the image. So I just reproduce this and put a gel on top of the pyramid, and this is the effect. So if you see the gel just alone by itself, this is what you see. And it creates lots and lots of different effects. And this is the way I finish the painting, or at least the point at which I am right now. In terms of what I do with my paintings after, well, I've been very curious and I've tried a lot. So I have my own plotter. It's a Hewlett Packard big printer where I print not just in the canvas and finish by hand like Heather and Jeremy does, but I love printing on watercolor paper too, which is a beautiful texture and a beautiful media to do something different. And it wouldn't be adding texture, although you could. But what I love about this media is that because of the technology that we have available for us right now, you can water the paper again. One is printed, and you can add inks or watercolors or acrylics on top without affecting the image that is already printed. So depending on the kind of image that I'm working on, I would print on canvas and finish with acrylics or other media, or I would use watercolor paper and I can finish that with the color pencils, with crayons, with watercolors, and then you can create more and more. So for me, this has been an incredible discovery, because it's like an ongoing process. As you go on and on, you print, but you're starting again, and you don't know where you're going to end, and it's very, very interesting. So I've printed in those mediums, but I also explored aluminum. So this is part of one of my images printed on aluminum, and this is very, very cool. If you're in front of the piece and you move, the lights of the cities are kind of going on and off, and this gives the image another language. Of course, it depends on the kind of image. I wouldn't print, never, ever, this image onto aluminum, because so depending on what I'm doing, I go for different kind of materials. So this is aluminum, but I also explored wood, and this is actually one of my latest commission. It's a huge commission. This is actually just my client looking at it just right after it was installed. It was last week actually, and this is wood. So I'm going to show you. This is the image. So these are panels in centimeters, are like 90 by 90 centimeters. I don't know exactly how much is that in inches, would you know? So it's big, it's almost a meter. And I printed the images on wood, and then I painted on top with acrylics. And I also added glaze, and a glaze that is UV protector too. So that's something I always do. And it gives the image a little bit of texture too, so that helps. And you are sure that what your client is getting is something that is going to last because it's protected. So I try to protect my images as much as I can. So this is the final product installed on the walls, and it was a great experience working with wood too. Thank you.
That's beautiful, Claudia.
Thank you.
Very inspiring.
Actually, if you go to my website, there's a video created about the whole process, the creation of the image and the installation. So you can go and see that if you're interested. Thank you.
That's great, because Paula is asking how you print on wood.
Well, that's not my printer. I cannot print on wood, and my printer I just can print on canvas or paper, any kind of media that is paper or flexible. You need to find somebody in your neighborhood or city or close to you that has a flatbed printer, which the characteristics that you need to print is big and on materials like this. But no, I cannot print this for myself, by myself.
Thank you very much, Claudia.
Wow, very inspiring, and I love that metal print, Claudia, where you extended the image beyond the rectangle of it. It was just gorgeous. I'd love to see that in real life.
It's a serious journey. I can show it to you later.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see it.
They're gorgeous.
So I just wanted to share some thoughts about finishing off. One of the things is obviously texture. Within Painter, there's some wonderful effects you can apply. And what you're seeing here, by the way, in case you're wondering, gosh, what's happened to all these icons? I just created in my arranged palettes one called Quick Start, which basically, this is like the easy peasy. So all these brushes, none of them use layers. And then I've made little shortcuts for the things that I thought people might want to do so they can just keep it real easy peasy. And one of the things I have here is actually a shortcut for the effect called Surface Control, Apply Surface Texture using Image Luminance. So when we click on that, you'll see that it sort of embosses your brush strokes in the current painting. Now, that may or may not, be effective. You can always fade back any effect that you do from anywhere 100 to 0%. So you can make things a bit more subtle. So that's one option. What I tend to do, I generally actually just paint. I usually extend the image beyond the border for a rough edge, just in case that's going to show in a gallery wrap. And then typically I'm printing on canvas using my Epson 9600, my workhorse 44-inch wide printer, running canvas through it. And then, very similar to what Heather described, I then work with acrylic gels. Usually lay my canvas flat first, not yet stretched or framed, flat on a surface big table, and then I apply either, well, I'm always experimenting with different, regular or heavy gels, whatever. Golden are the ones I like the best, and either semi-matte or gloss. you don't want to have matte because it's got a cloudiness to it. What you see here in this picture here is actually a detail from the painting called Dance Rehearsal that I did for my Degas Tableau Vivant performance. And so you can see the canvas texture, you can see a little bit of the gel texture, and then you can also see the addition of acrylic paint. So depending on the type of work, sometimes I'm working with collage and I'm sticking things on literally onto my canvas, but in this case I'm typically using a palette knife, and so these brush strokes you see here are palette knife applied acrylic paint, and what you might notice is that it's fairly minimalistic in terms of the application of the opaque paint. So the actual gel I pretty much put everywhere on the surface, and this is a rather exaggerated view. If you look really at an acute angle to the canvas, that's what I love about the gel, is you sort of get this incredible addition to the surface texture, which is very, for me, it's just a continuation of the painting process. So I'm very careful about every brush stroke following the directions of forms in the composition. And then I just apply the acrylic gel just where it feels like it works. And I've got some videos on Paintbox TV which go over some of that. When I'm doing the actual application of paint, whether with brush or with palette knife, I tend to, as you see here in a workshop photo, I tend to pin the canvases up on a wall and work with vertical for actually doing the paint, where I really want to continually stand back and have a look at that. But I definitely encourage you to work into your canvas surfaces and have fun with, you know, just different media. It really makes a difference then when you get to stretch and frame your work and it's got this extra level of texture. It really works wonderfully.
Beautiful work, Jeremy. That was really nice to see. So there's a lot of comments coming in, requests for, well, first of all, wondering if we're going to have future paint jams. And indeed, yes, we are. So we've got one scheduled to start September 11th. It's going to be focused on traditional art, and we'll be posting the registration information. I'll begin by posting that on Facebook, and we'll have the Paint Jam page updated by next week. And we're going to also take all this information from these jams. I did have a comment that someone had not seen the webinars posted on the webinar page, which I forgot to update, so I apologize for that. But you can find the recordings on our YouTube channel and also on Paint Jam. The recordings are accessible there. I'll take the one from today. We'll put it up there along with Heather's brushes and all this other information. I know there was some recording that happened behind the scenes too. So I will be sure to get all that information posted. And I really hope that you're all going to join us for these future paint jams. And I love to hear your recommendations. So anything that you would like to see in regards of a topic for a future paint jam, particular artists that you would like to see us involve in these, please send all that information to us. You can post it in social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Painter Factory. We monitor all of those, and I certainly welcome your feedback. So with that, this ends our first paint jam for Photo Fine Art. Thank you so much to all of the artists, to Heather and Claudia and Jeremy for making the first session so engaging, a wonderful learning experience. All the thank yous are coming through. People are telling me that their brain is exploding from the amount of information.
I think my brain's exploded.
Mine too, actually, yeah.
And thank you, everybody, all the people out there who we can't see, but we know are there. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us as we've been doing this. And thank you, Claudia and Heather, again. You're wonderful to work with. And Tanya and Steve and the rest of the Corel crew, brilliant job. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, so have a wonderful day, everybody. We're going to go ahead and close down the webinar, and we will see you hopefully in September. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.